Snumsa here at Ngozi Talk Shows, Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. With me today, I have Carol Ann Cooper, Amanda Murray, and Lakshmi Dev. If I pronounced your name wrong, I'm really sorry. So our topic today she's our guest, by the way, guys. Welcome her. And I like your picture at the back, actually. It's so gorgeous. It's just the detail is amazing. Did you make it?
No, it's a friend who's an artist out of
Okay.
Colorado. So she paints aspens.
Yeah, it's so natural. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
So our topic today is unlock the power of mindfulness, retreats, and travel for inner peace. So I'm going to let Miss Dev introduce the topic because she chose this topic. And please introduce the topic and what do you think the audience will benefit from this topic, please?
Yeah, so I actually have been hosting retreats for about 13 years, mostly for women focused. And I believe that retreats are maybe one of the most underrated things to experience in life. And as I've been on this journey for so long and seen so many women's lives change, and of course men too, it's become really clear that, you know, it's one thing for us to get away. I think we all need to kind of step out of our daily routine and our crazy lives and our schedules and all of the things that are happening and going on a daily basis. And it's another thing to be put in a place in a space that is very much focused on self-care and personal growth and connection to, all retreats are different, but mindfulness, having that connection with your own sense of inner power that gives you that feeling of inner peace and learning new tools. And then I think a big piece of it that, you know, the maybe difference between somebody going away, like a getaway vacation and a retreat, is the amount of connection that happens through all the participants. And so, you know, it's almost like somebody comes in as themselves and they leave as themselves, but yet with so much more sense of fulfillment. And it's in so many ways. And I've seen so many women, it's just so beautiful to me how, you know, everybody comes in as strangers and is all kind of like awkward and like, you know, a little quiet or reserved. And yet within 2 days, it's like the bonds start happening. And you can just see, it's like everybody just starts to like let the layers shed and immerse themselves in the practices and whatever it is that we're doing. And then they leave like, you know, soul sisters. And it's just it's a really beautiful, I think, experience for so many people. And I think, of course, like I said, everyone is different. It depends on the leader. It depends on the topic. It depends on the environment. But I do think it's something that gets people a little out of the box, and then they allow themselves to transform. And then as that transformation happens, what happens on the other side is really beautiful, because sometimes it's just literally like a reset of your mind, of your body, and of your spirit. And I think we all need that in our lives today.
Absolutely. And there is that reset, isn't it? And it's seeing people coming in to a retreat and they're all sort of busy.
Yeah.
And they're all out there and it's all, you know, and it is that quietening down and that going in and that starting to sort of slow down and appreciate life and people around them and nature. And that's a really magical shift, isn't it? You can see something transform within them. And I love what you're saying about it. They come in as themselves and they go as themselves, but there's a transformation that's happened. You can see there is something different about them, and it is that inner quality that's starting to shine, and there is that more peace inside, isn't there? Which is really lovely. But as you say,
I love that you said magical, because I feel like that's what happens. It's like this, you know, like you can't really explain it. It's just like magic. It's like miraculous even sometimes to see somebody, you know, who, and I think it's interesting too, and maybe it's more women in this manner. It could be men too, but I don't host, like I said, a lot of just male retreats. But everybody kind of has a view of what this person is like, or their life, or, you know, based on what they see and who they see coming in.
Mm.
And then as the magic starts to happen, we all see that we all are struggling with something. We all have our own inner battles, and we all then can understand each other, I think, deeper and better. And there's less judgment around others and more of that compassion and curiosity, which is really powerful.
Yeah, and because I ran a writing retreat last year, and what was interesting, it was the first one I run because of COVID. It sort of got put back quite a few times, but it eventually ran, and it was something I'd sort of set my mind to do for a while. And it's like I got there, and what was interesting was there was a lady who was supporting me with the food, but as well as sitting the retreat. And for a few days, I could feel she'd been on other writing retreats, and I could feel there was an expectation. That was how she knew a writing retreat ran, and mine was completely different. And I think it was about a day or a couple of days later, she sort of came to me in the morning. She put her arms around me and she said, "It's right," she said, "I've given up that fight." She said, "I'm going to go with the flow and just go with what you're saying." She said, "I realize I have to let go of expectations of how it should or shouldn't be." And it was so lovely just to see that shift. And then for her to actually connect with her inner writer. And she actually said at the end of the week, she'd reconnected with the joy of writing again. And it was just so beautiful. You could see it in her whole being. I was like, oh, I love it, you know. But it's that being able to just let go of expectations, let go of what we know or what we don't know, and just be in the moment and just be with what is happening. And as you say, there's different types of retreats, isn't there? I mean, when I saw this topic, I was like, okay, don't know. But I sort of did some research this morning. I thought, wow, okay, that's interesting. And sort of, but yeah, there's different types. And that's when I thought, okay, yes, a writing retreat is also one that gives you mindfulness. But you've got nature ones, you've got meditation ones, and it's the leader that sort of sets the tone in a way of what the style of retreat is. And it's looking for one that actually suits you. And as I say, that I can see this, lots of different ones. And I thought, I really sort of like where this topic could go. So thank you for bringing it. It's really, really interesting.
Well, I love this topic because I think retreats are so powerful. I know the couple that I've been to really were like transformational on so many different levels. I went to one it was called the Hoffman Institute, and it essentially, you do a whole bunch of work before even, because it's about healing your childhood traumas. And so going into it, you know that it's all about healing. And it's interesting that, back to me, you say that there's fewer men that are interested in it. And even in that one, it wasn't specific to women or anything like that, but there was definitely more women at the retreat than there were men. And I think that's pretty standard, but I think men are starting to open up and be more vulnerable and more willing to attend retreats and start looking into mindfulness and start looking into some of that research, because it's not this like fluffy stuff that just women want. It's actually, there's like beginning to be scientific research on mindfulness and finding inner peace, and the benefits of meditation, and the benefits of journaling, and the benefits of really having good routines in your life and getting rid of those habits that we've ingrained in ourselves. And so I think a retreat can really introduce us to new habits and to new ways of thinking, and help us heal on a deeper level than we even expected. And so I also ran a retreat a number of years ago now, and we called it the Art of Yoga, and it was a yoga and art retreat. And I ran the art piece of it, and my girlfriend that I did it with, she ran the yoga piece of it, and it was just so much fun. And it was so transformational just to see the women that came and how they came in like all tense and stressed, and they left like just laughing and just having the best time ever. And ever since then, I'm like, you need to do another one, but it's there's always so much planning and work that goes into it as well. And so, Lakshmi, I know you're planning a retreat that's in Europe somewhere, right?
I have one in Spain coming up in July, and then I typically do at least one a year in Costa Rica. So that one's more towards the end of the year.
Yeah. And what is the like focus? What do you guys do? Like how do you set it up so that people, when they come in and then they leave, that they leave with that just like sense of like inner peace that we're talking about today?
So I actually have something that I created. It was more downloaded to me when I was going through a really tough time. I had just been re-diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and that was back in, I think, 2020 actually. And I just was going through a time, and was out on a hike, and just this whole like method came through. And so it's called the Soul Remedy Method. And so it really incorporates 5 pieces, which is Mother Nature, meditation, movement, mantra or music, and mindset. And so what I've realized is if you have those 5 elements in your life every single day, and it doesn't have to be 5 hours a day, you could literally do each one 5 minutes and have a 25-minute connection to all of those. It for me has alleviated so much. I mean, it's amazing. And I think it's just part of who we are. And so typically my retreat is ran where we work through the chakras through the days. So we'll have the foundational piece of the first and second chakra of like, moving through fears and feeling stable. Because the truth is, if we don't feel safe in the environment we're in, we will not allow ourselves to heal or transform or, let go, even just go with the flow. And so it's been really beautiful to see how incorporating the chakras in those 5 pieces is a way for people to, again, reconnect with themselves. And I love what you said with, it really is this, it's like people tap into who they've lost almost sometimes, that joy. And then just like, one thing I say is like, letting loose, like it's, we're so like bound with who we are and our lives and our schedules and all of the things. And even those old held traumas. And when we do the work, it allows us to be free and feel joyful. And I think it's almost like, we need these elements in our life, but we don't realize it until we have them. And so each day there's specifically, a meditation, if not more than one. There's Kundalini yoga, there's Vinyasa yoga, typically, sometimes a combo or we switch it out. And then there's practices. So learning about the chakras, going through healing sessions. Sometimes there's sound healing. And then there's also lots of downtime for having fun. And I think that's what people forget is this isn't, I do believe in like very deeply spiritual retreats. And sometimes that's what I need, is just to get away and like really just sit with myself and go deep. However, my retreats are, I think, more like a combo, because I want people to experience more than just feeling like they're in there, like digging deep and doing the work. It's like you can do that and let yourself let loose. And so I think it's really powerful to have that balance of both, so that, it's like that transformation is happening, but you also feel this super lightness, where it's like, and you're making memories. It's not just like going in, doing the work. It's also like making memories, making those connections. And we need that time to just integrate as well.
I love that. I don't know anything about retreats. I've never been to a retreat, but when you guys are explaining, it's all about finding your inner child, which is really, really good. I think for me, I'm just going to make the most of it by asking questions for the audience as well. And so how can your retreats experience, let's say if somebody is watching and then they want to book for a retreat to come to your events, how can their experience contribute to their personal growth and inner peace?
How can they experience it?
Yeah, how can the experience of the retreat contribute to them, because personal growth is important and their inner peace. So somebody who doesn't know anything about retreat like me, I want to know how, if I was to come to you, the whole experience, how can I make the most of it, making sure that it contributes to my growth and my inner peace, so that I come prepared.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because again, this is just me speaking from my experience of those I've been on and my own, is I tell everyone, if you come with an open mind and an open heart, that is the most important. And for, I would say, almost every participant, there is an intention behind it. So if you have that intention, or at least you think you have an intention, it's really interesting too, because some people think they're coming for something, and as they start doing the work, they realize, oh my gosh, I actually needed this instead. So I think it's really having the open mind, open heart, having an intention, but not an attachment to the outcome, or, like Catherine said, expectation, like just letting yourself immerse into the practices. And I think it also depends on the retreat, but I think that when you set it up right, the facilitator, giving that space for the attendees to, again, feel safe to let their guard down per se, or, be vulnerable, share, laugh, cry together. It is a little bit of a journey, I would say. So having that open mind, open heart is pretty important to me.
I agree. If you can come, you can set an intention for what you want to get out of it. But as you say, actually, it's not being attached to it, because that's where then you bring in emotion. And if you don't get what you've set an attachment to, you can get disappointed. And so it's just setting an intention and just being open and just being willing to go with whatever opens up. And it is that being vulnerable, as you say, because opening up and being vulnerable is part of personal development. It's part of looking at what has happened for you, to you, although as we say, it's not to you, it's for you, because it's then learning the lessons. But it's being open to really going in. And a lot of people there's a scaredness about going inward, because they don't know what kind of worms they're going to open up. And sometimes it's safer to keep that kind of worms well and truly sort of held down. But it is just knowing that you're in that safe space. And it is important for, as you say, a leader, to just create that sort of cradle of support where somebody can just have a breakdown emotionally, just sort of crumble, because that's where a lot of people are frightened of, isn't it? Of crumbling and letting go and not being able to deal with it. Whereas somewhere like on a retreat where you've got that beautiful support, emotional support, it's safe, it feels safe. And I love what you were saying, Lakshmi, about starting with the root chakras to the root chakra and the next one up, I can't remember the name. But it is that, there's a safety, it's feeling safe, feeling secure, releasing it of fear, and being able to be present and face what is there to be faced. And it's also knowing that you're never given anything that you don't have the tools to deal with. And I think that's a really important idea and concept that people could go with when they go to a retreat, because sometimes there can be that fear of, oh gosh, what what's going to happen? What am I going to find? Well, know that you will have the tools. There is that safety. And so it's having that open-mindedness. But this is what personal development is about, personal growth. And this is why it helps with your personal growth. Because personal growth is actually personal investigation. It's personal discovery. It's knowing who you are and what's your potential, and realizing that we are nowhere near our potential of what we can do, what we can produce, how we can create our lives. And so it's knowing that full power. What's your thoughts, Amanda?
Well, there's just so much power in that personal growth piece, right? And sometimes we don't even realize, like Lakshmi was saying, there is you come to a retreat for a certain outcome or hope, right? And then sometimes you end leaving with something completely different than what you thought. So your expectation, it actually doesn't come to fruition because you come out of it with so much more, or you realize that that's not actually the reason why you came. And so the first one that I ever went to, I initially thought that I was going to learn how to heal my marriage and to fix what it was that was falling apart. And when I left, I was like, nope. This is not why I came here. I came here to realize that I need to take care of myself and my daughter, and that this is a very unhealthy marriage, and that the best thing for me and her is for me to get divorced. And so essentially what I went there thinking that I would get the tools to help me fix my marriage, I really went there and I got the tools to become and build a healthy, loving home on my own. And so that was something that was like really, really powerful for me, because I went in there with the intention of getting tools to fix what was wrong with inside of me so that I could then in turn fix my marriage. And what I learned was that there's some marriages that cannot be fixed and that really what it is learning to love yourself from within and to build a healthy, loving home, even if it's independent, and that you're doing it on your own. And sometimes that is a lot healthier than the alternative. And that's actually why I wrote my children's book, Divorce is a D Word. Sometimes two homes are better than one, because that's essentially what I learned through that first retreat, was that well, first of all, I wrote my first book there. After a meditation, I scribbled down basically the whole thing of it's okay to feel. And it was just all these essential questions on I'm feeling angry. What is it that makes you feel angry? And I wrote it for children because I'm a teacher. And essentially it's like 4 years later, I finally got it published, but that was the beginning of so much personal growth for me, and really understanding that it was okay for me to be angry, and it was okay for me to feel sad, and it was okay for me to feel joyful or proud or confident or even to feel loved. And that essentially in that book, the end of it is like one of the biggest emotions of all is love, and that's what we hope we can find for ourselves and within ourselves. And that's really what I got out of that retreat, even though I went in with a very different intention. And it's interesting because one of the things that you had to do at the retreat was you wrote a letter to whoever it was that inspired you to go to it. And at that time, we had made my ex-husband go to it first, and then I was going to it second. And he thought I would write the letter to him, essentially. And the reason I went wasn't because of him. I went because one of my girlfriends had actually been to it. And I was like, what's the point? We've already split up. Like, there's no point in me going to this too. And she said, go for yourself, Amanda. Go for yourself. She's like, I went when I was 18 years old. And she said, promise me that no matter what, you won't leave, because there's some really weird things that you have to do at it. And I was like, okay. She's like, because if I would have had a car at that time, I would have left. And I was like, okay, noted. And so I actually wrote the letter to her, thanking her for convincing me to go, because I wouldn't have gone without her saying, like, go for you. You're not going to fix your marriage, you're going for you. And that's essentially what came out of it in the end too. And so it's just so interesting how you can go into something thinking like, this is what I need, this is what's going to help me with this piece. But really what I learned was that it was me that needed to learn how to love myself. And so retreats can be really, really super powerful. And then you can go to ones that are super fun too, that you do some healing work at, and then you also get that fun piece in as well. But the intention for the one was more of healing from trauma from my childhood that was showing up in my life, and learning how strategies to deal with that. Because even after you leave the retreat, it's not all healed. You still have stuff that you're going through, and things that are going to come up, and triggers that still come up, and patterns that still come up. But at least now I have that mindfulness piece of, why am I being triggered by this? Why is this causing me to freeze or fight or flee? Right? And so these things come up, and you're almost able to stop yourself and be like, okay, what is it that's underlying pattern that's causing me to react this way? And so I think just even learning that about ourselves and being mindful about that is huge. And that's something I learned for the first time in a retreat. And it's something that those connections that you build with people too, it's something that you don't get anywhere else.
I love that. It sounds like retreat is when you make a decision to go to a retreat, you actually disconnecting yourself from all these distractions of our everyday life, if I'm not wrong, if I'm right, and so that you can fully engage engage in mindfulness and use techniques such as meditation and movement and conscious breathing. So what else? Is there any other movement that you use like Mishdev, like to reduce stress and foster a sense of inner calm? Because when Amanda is explaining, she went with a decision, she had made a decision, this is the problem that I have, this is what I'm gonna solve. But when she got there, the retreat was like, she felt like it went deep, and she realized the actually foundation of her problems, it wasn't for her to build the marriage, it was for her to get out. So that means that you guys go deep when you do like all these exercises. What kind of exercises do you do when you get there that makes people actually go deep to the foundation? Because sometimes we may think, oh, the problem is this, but like you say, come with the open mind, so you can have the whole experience of it. So if any audience they are watching, they're like, okay, what else? What else? Because I'm interested. Like Amanda, when she's explaining, it's like, go deep some stuff.
Well, for myself, what I typically, and I say typically because it is a go with the flow in a way. So there's a structure, and yet I always have to feel into the energy of the group, and things can shift. But the first piece is, I would say, almost like a grounding. So we work through the root chakra, doing a meditation to really connect you into your body and into feeling safe and into the earth and into the group and into the space, so that everybody is feeling at ease just to be there. And part of that as well is we do a little bit of two pieces. So one is giving themselves permission to go through this. It's like a journey, right? So it's a progression through the week or however many days it is. And the other is a vow to each other that, they'll listen and be open and be vulnerable and not judge. And so it's really to kind of bring the group together. It's like an opening ceremony so that people all feel like, it's a community. And so then it's looking at, the pieces of the roots, like what are the fears, what are the insecurities, and being able to really let yourself explore that and then share that. And then because we go through the chakras, the second is really about tapping into the inner child and like, what does your inner child need? So I usually take them through a little bit of a visualization where you come back and you sit with yourself at a certain age, and then you listen to her and you know, love her and give her what she needs. And then know you can always go back and connect with her. And then we go up into the power chakras or solar plexus, and like, where do you give your power away? Why do you give it away? Like, are you needing to pull it back in? And we do some meditations around that, and also movement. So a lot of my teachings are also movement based and Kundalini and breath work based, because it's about getting out of the head, right? So clearing the subconscious mind and getting into a new space of a new mental pattern sometimes. Then we go to the heart. So a lot of the heart work is a pretty deep day. And by that time, women have let themselves go, I guess you could say, and started really connecting and being vulnerable and having things happen. And so the experience has gotten pretty more open. And so a lot of the heart piece we do is around forgiveness. And so it can be of past circumstances, people themselves, working through compassion and really what lights them up. And that's where it's like you start getting into this, okay, I start to feel lighter and freer and happy and joyful and peaceful. And so then we work through the throat. So we allow ourselves to go into like a very expressive, sometimes that's like a kind of crazy movement, ecstatic dance, fun, just letting loose and dancing crazy and hollering and, you know, getting yourself to clear out the inability to speak up or to speak out, or to, like, you know, how we just swallow our feelings sometimes. Then we go through the third eye. So really connecting into the intuition, doing more spiritual connection of like being able to hear your intuition and trust it, and some connection between the third eye and the sacral chakra, because the gut feelings. And then we go into the crown, which is really about connecting to your higher self, the universal mind, like your deepest spiritual connection. And we also go a little bit into the auric field, which is kind of our whole area that surrounds us, our magnetic field and auric field, so that we protect ourselves from negativity. And we also project this like really high vibration. So again, there's different practices throughout. We do, like, for me, a fire ceremony is really powerful because you write these things out and then you watch them burn. So they physically have this kind of letting go into the ethers. When I went to my very first retreat, actually, we did a fire ceremony, and it's very similar to the one that I do, where we chant to a Ganesh. It's like this elephant man that removes obstacles, and you burn, you know, your stuff that you want to let go of. And I had went there at the time. I had been dealing with eating disorders pretty much since I was a teenager. And that ceremony, that was one of the things that I was letting go of. And I had been 16 years dealing with bulimia, and I've never since that day, like, ever made myself, you know, do that again. So it was just, there's just so much power in ceremony and meditations and healings. And I do a lot of energy healing as well. So as we'll be doing some of the sessions, I'll also be doing Reiki or energy healing. That it depends on what's needed. But yeah, it's a good blend. But it's also, I think that's what's really important is people are learning tools along the way that they can take with them. Like, I think Amanda had mentioned, like, what is the trigger, right? Why are you getting triggered, and finding the interrupters and learning how to interrupt that. And I love, Carol, what you said about the cradle, right? Like, it's like creating this cradle where people can be in that space and just feel held, because I think most people don't maybe know until we get in this type of space, is that our nervous system is all of us, I think, as a collective, just totally out of whack. And so we will go back to our ways of like fight or flight or fear or fawn, whatever it is, freezing. And so when your nervous system becomes softened and balanced through the practices, you also allow yourself to heal and to let go and to feel at peace.
Yeah, it's very true, because if you are in that fight or flight space, it's a different part of the brain that you're you're working from. And it's those reflexes, the initial reflexes that we have when we're first born that actually control us. And if those aren't fully integrated, then they have initially, they control us. And so if you can get those integrated or allow for that feeling to them to have their bit of a hold, and then it's actually being able to move through that emotional center and then up into that higher cortex where you've got that clear rational thought. And it's in that safe space that allows for that release, isn't it, of the reflex that's got a hold of you to just let you breathe. And actually breathing, I think Mandy mentioned breathing, it's a really important tool because we very often hold our breath. And so if you can just remember to breathe, that can actually break that pattern of where you're at and bring you back to present. Just remembering to breathe, just go, oh, breathe, and just focus on breathing and do some breathing exercise in that moment. Just breathing deeply and then letting it out and breathing in again and just really focusing on just breathing. And you can feel your body just relaxing and relaxing, and you can become aware of the tension that's in there. And it is having awareness. And this is what mindfulness is about, isn't it? It's having awareness. And that's the key to actually being able to shift something, to transform something and to become aware of where you're at. And very often, it's not until you've released that tension do you actually realize where you were at, where tension was held in the body. Because very often we've got it's holding us so tight that it just becomes a way of life. And our life is so fast paced and which is on the move and just constantly reacting to everything that's going on, that when you can stop and realize actually you don't need to react to it, you can just breathe and then decide to respond in a more appropriate manner. So whether you actually do need to say anything or do anything or not can then actually come from a much more relaxed place and a more appropriate place. And actually the actions that you then take are much more profitable and fruitful and actually can help with whatever it is you're wanting to get on with, or even with your relationships. And I think what you said, Amanda, about learning it needed to be you that you went for. I think that's the key for any retreat that you go on, any personal development that you go on. And it was something I realized when I first started training in educational kinesiology, brain gym. And that's when I started on my journey of training in other complementary fields and on this journey of personal development, and ended up leaving teaching. Each course I went on, I suddenly realized that actually I was there for me. It was great. I could use these tools and learn about them. But ultimately, I was there because everything I was learning and the practices and the procedures that I was learning, I was actually clearing something within myself. I was transforming something and healing. And again, it's the inner child, very much so. Going back to incidents and traumas that have affected you as a child that actually hold you in a space, because it's that inner child that actually comes into play when you suddenly find yourself reacting, and it's like, it's not the you now, it's that inner child. And so you go back and you can work with that inner child and reassure them, let them heal in that moment, say what they needed to say, complete what it was, maybe wasn't completed. And it's allowing them to grow up inside you. And you can feel that shift. And then you find yourself being present. And then you can take more appropriate action. So it's quite a complex thing. And it's not something that can be done in 5 minutes. People seem to think, oh, this is, quick fix. there is nothing to fix. It's really about you finding who you really are and coming back to a wholeness. And for me, it's a lifetime journey. And I remember Brandon Bayes on the journey, when I was training as a journey practitioner, she was saying, there's always more to do. And she said, I'm sure, I haven't healed everything that there is to heal. And there's something else that was said, is that when you've done everything that is here for your lifetime, that's when it's time for you to go. And I'm going, okay, so keep bringing it on. I want to stay here as long as possible. And sometimes I regret when I ask for it, because it's like, oh gosh, did I ask for this? But again, it's knowing that what comes your way, you have the tools and the resources available to you in that moment. And it's not necessarily just you, it's people that you know. And so it's reaching out. And who is it you could talk to? And as you say, what retreats can you go on? Because that, I think, is a beautiful way of really getting to grips with this and getting to know who you are, and relaxing into that space of, who am I? Because that was a question that totally floored me when I first heard it years ago. And I was sat in going, well, who am I? I don't know. And I literally sat in front of the mirror going, I have no idea who I am. And literally broke down in tears. I'm a mum, I'm a wife, a mother, a daughter, all of those things. But who am I? I didn't know. And it's been interesting to sort of journey to explore that. So a retreat can help you to get closer to that understanding and feeling more comfortable with yourself, because I think there's a level of discomfort in all of us, and that discomfort, where does it come from? It's being able to explore that and to be able to then let it go and transform your relationships with yourself and with other people and move on. And if that means that friends that you had before disappear, unfortunately, that is part of the journey. And I've realized that if they're meant to be with you, they will. And if they're not, they've just come for part of the journey and off they go. And it took a while to get used to that. So I don't know if you found the same on this sort of journey, Amanda or Lakshmi, have you found that?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's a journey, and that retreats can help you with that journey, especially if it's on a journey of self-discovery and self-growth. I know that we're getting close to time, so I don't want to take too much time, but I just think that if you are searching for something that's really going to help you just grow in a way that you didn't expect, that looking into a retreat is probably like your next best step, especially if you are like, okay, I know there's something I'm meant to do, but I don't know what it is yet. This might just be it.
It sounds like you have to. It sounds like what we do when we do deliverance for Christians as well. That's the process that we go through. But we go through it using the Bible, like what Carol Ann says. When you go, you have these you don't have expectations, but then you discover that the people that you have in your life, sometimes you may start questioning why are they there, and you start seeing them disappears. And that's why I always say, Carol Ann, that if somebody is meant to be in my life, they will stay in my life. I don't have to try hard to convince them or trying to please them. I always say relationship becomes natural. It sounds like what Lakshmi Dev does on her retreat is basically she helps people discover who they are, discover the foundation of your life, because it's very, very important to know your foundation, to know your values and your beliefs as well at the same time, which most people struggle to actually find that path, who they are, and with their beliefs, they know their beliefs, they will just go and just follow other people, become a follower. And I think what she does is amazing, because our inner child is there, but sometimes we can choose to ignore our inner child and just do whatever we want to do. Our inner child is there to guide us through life. So what you do is really, really amazing. And I hope our audience as well, if someone wants to know more about retreat, where are you best, actually?
I'm actually in Tucson, Arizona, in the United States.
Yeah, so anyone can just book it from anywhere in the world and
Yes.
just, yeah, okay.
So I'm here, but I'm all over the world.
Yeah.
Like
It sounds good. It sounds good. It sounds good. So our audience have clear, not to say, oh, I'm in this country, how can I find something? So they can still, guys, if you're watching, wherever you might be, you can still get in touch with her and find out. Do you have a website?
I do, yeah.
Awesome. And find out, I'll attach all her links, social media, on the video as well. You can just access it. If you want to get in touch with her, you can get in touch with her. If you have any questions regarding the cost of a retreat, you can do that private. I think I'll put on the website, there will be an email to actually get in touch, and even on her social media, you can just find out the process. How many times do you do your retreat a year?
Usually my international retreats are twice a year. So one, depending on where, and then usually at Costa Rica. And then I typically will do something else more local, either Arizona based or United States based. So 2 to 4 times a year, depending on, sometimes the United States are not a full week, whereas my international ones are a week, typically a week long.
Okay. That sounds good. Yeah. So I think they have a clear understanding, the audience, how to book. That's very clear. So if someone is interested, all they do, they just go to the website and look at the dates, availability, and just book it. So that's fine. I hope they're listening. Any words of encouragement, Carol Ann?
Yeah, there's a lovely quote I just found this morning. It's, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. And I feel that a retreat is a great way to learn how to surf, the waves of life. And so do look it up, do think about it, have a look at how your life is, and look into going on a retreat. I know we didn't actually talk about travel, because that's another topic again, isn't it, to talk about? So, that might be worth exploring another time. But certainly, when we get too caught up in the busyness of the world, we lose connection with one another and ourselves. Jack Cornfield. And I think that was something that was brought up and highlighted in this discussion. Reconnect. It is safe to reconnect with yourself and with other people. So do go with it. Amanda, is there anything you'd like to?
Can I ask you these questions before, Amanda? What does it mean, travel for inner peace?
I think sometimes that you can learn to find inner peace within yourself through travel, because you realize that it's not about where you are.
Does it mean travel isn't traveling, going to different countries?
Well, you can. Like, one of the things that I've learned is that even when you think like, oh, my life would be better if I lived in Mexico, or because I live up in Canada, or if I lived here, you're bringing your baggage with you wherever it is that you go. So until you learn to release that baggage and release those triggers and learn how to deal with that inner trauma, you're not going to find the inner peace. So traveling helps us become aware of that piece as well, right? That you go wherever you go.
Okay, I got to
And
ask these questions because I don't really know anything about retreats, so I have to ask. So I'm
But
sure.
there's this mindful travel versus traditional travel. So mindful travel, you'll become aware of where you're at. Whereas traditional travel, people just go, have a look, explore places, and they're not really present. So I think there's that aspect.
I think, the quote, wherever you go, you are there. It's so the same concept. Like we do, I think, need to get out of our environment. It helps us to let go, to learn who we are and to feel empowered and to have that sense of peace, though, wherever we go, and then learn these new ways. And I think it's really cool to have, because it's different areas and experiences, having different cultures, but still, wherever you go, you are there. Like you're not getting away from you. That's, it's like instead learning how to be more of you, and then having that sense of, oh, it is okay. I am enough. And I think travel is just amazing for us to also let go of those expectations, because you can imagine that you're going to have this flight and you're going to go on this day and then it's this time and this is going to happen. And that can all fall apart within a day's time. And it's like, are you going to let that determine how happy you are that there's, something wrong? Or are you just going to say, okay, here I am again, just at peace with trusting in the universe and going with the flow?
Much for clarifying that, because sometimes we might think that we know things. So I like to ask. So now I know I can actually explain. If someone was to ask a questions or a message, I can actually reply to the video for what I've learned. Thank you so much, Amanda.
are we saying our end pieces?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
We're looking at the time because of you, the time, because you have to go.
I loved our conversation today, and how you can find mindfulness and inner peace through travel and through retreats, and just that inner knowing that you need to find some tools to change what's going on inside of you. Because I know for myself that retreats have been really, really powerful. And I have a free gift for everyone on my website. If you go to it, it's a download ebook called The Mindful Art of Creativity. And it has a bunch of different activities that you can do to connect to yourself and to connect to your inner creativity, because I believe we all are infinitely creative. And I hope that you look into Lakshmi's retreats, because I think they will be amazing.
Lakshmi Dev, would you like to actually tell our audience who you are and where they can find you, and also if they want to book a retreat, give them instructions, please.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook under Divine, Divine, Divine Lakshmi Dev. So it's LAKSHMI DEV. So you'll have the links. And there is a retreat, like I said, coming up in Spain. That one we are actually offering. So if you'll go to the website, it's right now, there's a last chance offer. So it's $1,000 off of what you see. So so you'll have links to that. And in the big picture, I guess you just said, who am I? And it's that's a big question. So, but for what I do is, teach yoga, I do mindset coaching, I do healing, and I mostly focus on women who are wanting to go deeper into their spiritual connection and kind of get to this new level and let go of the limitations so that they can experience that pure and highest potential and live life to the fullest. So that's what I'm here for.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And please, guys, get in touch with her. I will attach all her links on the videos, as I said before. And if you're watching us from YouTube or Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, please follow us, like our pages, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and be part of Ngozi Talk Show's family. And thank you so much for being here today and talk about retreat. Hopefully you come back again. And God bless everyone who is watching, and live with grace.